comprehending that, right? So very quickly, just to remind you all, you already know me. My name is Aarti Venkatesh. I'm here because, I love to communicate and I pretty much made a career out of it. I am a resume expert. I am a social media strategist. I do email marketing. I basically am a writer at large, and I've been helping brands, influencers, and people communicate effectively for about 4.5 years, 5 years now. And in case any of y'all want to stay in touch with me, you can, head to the links that I'm about to drop on the chat box. That has my LinkedIn profile, my Instagram profile, as well as my TopMate services page. Okay. Moving on, this is going to be the agenda for today. We're going to discuss three main things. One is going to be active listening. The next is going to be about the jargons you use at the workplace. And the third, most importantly, is going to be about impactful presentations. Now, please ensure that you pay a lot of attention to how this presentation is, like the deck, whatever you see on your screen is, because towards the end of the session, before we get into the impactful presentation part, I'm going to ask you what you've observed about the deck and how it's structured as well. Okay. Yeah. Are you ready to get started? Can everyone tell me if you're ready to get started?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
need some, see, I did a very strenuous 2 hour workout and I finished cooking for the day. I'm very, very tired. Okay. It's your yes that's going to give me the energy like caffeine. Now, come on. Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
let's do
ma'am.
it, Chris.
Yeah. Yay!
Yes.
I love the sound of that. Awesome, ladies. Let's get started. Okay. Active listening, right? See, listening is a great skill. It builds trust. It encourages problem solving, but it also takes practice. It's more complicated than you might think. But the main problem is most people don't think about it. It's second nature to all of us to listen. But there is a little difference, right? We don't always listen. We hear whatever is going in the background. We hear noises. We hear what people say. But do we really listen to them is the question, right? Good listening will enable people to tell their story the way they intended to in the first place, right? So before we begin, can someone tell me what the difference is about what I just said? Like, the difference between hearing something and listening something. Can someone tell me that?
Hearing in the sense you may not be paid attention to the details.
Okay, okay,
Yes, your ears will hear something and it goes from the other ear. But when you pay
okay,
attention to it, it will be like listening. You'll get to know the context of the whatever the conversation is going on or whatever you are listening. You'll
right.
understand that.
Okay, okay. So can anyone else also try to point out a key difference? I mean, whoever spoke just now, I wasn't able to recognize who spoke just now, but you were spot on, right? Not just, hearing something and not processing it, but can one more person try to tell me what it is very quickly? But you were right. It's not that you were wrong. Yeah. Who else? Come on, quickly. Unmute and speak. Or should I point out and ask? Huh? Now.
Hi, ma'am. This is Sandhya.
Hi, Sandhya. Thanks for introducing yourself. Sometimes it's hard for me to recognize who's speaking. Go.
I can tell about listening is being active.
Mm-hmm.
Hearing might be not that active. You'll just hear it, and you might not be like. You just don't get to listen. Like what to
So,
say.
what is the key
Not be
differentiator?
completely hearing it.
No. What is the key differentiator? Both involves you hearing somebody out, but what is the key differentiator?
That's what listening means. You'll be active, like like you'll give your brain some work to sense it. What exactly is this?
Okay. Correct, correct. Both of y'all are right. You put some effort into actually processing the information that you hear. That is the key differentiator between just hearing something and listening to something, right? Now this is one of the most impactful quotes on listening, in my opinion. It's by this author and professor of linguistics called Deborah Tannen. And she says to say that a person feels listened to means a lot more than just their ideas being heard. It's a sign of respect. It makes people feel valued. Okay. Now, moving on to the types of listening, right? Before we get there, can someone tell me what makes you feel like someone's actually listening to you? How do you know if someone's truly listening to you? What makes you think that someone's listening to you? Let me point and ask, because we're wasting a lot of time waiting for somebody to talk. Jaita, hi, good morning.
Good morning. When
So
like
when you're
someone,
talking to someone, what makes you think that they're actually listening to you?
if he is interacting back with me,
Okay, all right. One is that they respond to you. Okay, what else?
Nodding heads.
Nodding. Okay, what else? Give me 5
like
points and then we can move.
Eye contact, ma'am.
Eye contact.
Eye
They
contact.
actually look at you when you're talking. Yeah, it's very annoying when you're talking to someone and they look elsewhere. That causes the number one problem between me and my partner. What else? It usually sets people off when you're trying to talk to them and they're not even so much as looking at you. It's very annoying, right? What else? Good points so far. Quickly, guys, come on. This is effective communication and no one is even attempting to communicate, then I'm going to be disappointed. What else?
Body
Guys,
language.
okay, what about body language? Give me specifics. I don't want vague answers.
Okay, fine. So if somebody's hands or something they are trying to do, okay, when you're talking to me, I can do something. I can act like I'm listening, okay, but I'm not paying attention. My hands are fidgeting, or I'm doing something else. I'm nervous, something else. Like I just
Okay,
wanted to get out of that conversation. It can be obvious.
okay, okay, okay. What else? Okay, what actions or what gestures or what essentially makes you feel like they are not listening to you? Someone you're talking to is not listening to you. What pushes you to think they're not listening to you?
Interrupting your speech while you're talking.
Great point. Interruptions. What else? Quickly, guys. We don't have time.
Losing in
Trying-
between somewhere else.
Losing?
Losing in between, like they will ask, come again, what did you say, and all those things.
Okay, asking you to repeat. That's a new
Yes.
point, but a very valid point. Yes, great, great. What else? One more.
Facial expression, ma'am. Frown face. That interest means there'll be a charm, and there'll be like the brightness of the face will be like more. But when once if you
Right.
are not interested, like they'll somewhat show faces. They'll turn back here
Yeah.
and there.
Frowning, hissing,
Yes.
rolling their eyes, sighing.
Hmm.
You know what other thing makes me feel like
or
what other thing makes me feel like someone's not listening, especially at the workplace when they check the time or they look at the phone to check their time. It's very, very disrespectful, and you definitely know that they're not, whatever you're saying is going over their head, right? Okay. Now, types of listening. Okay. Let me before we get into active listening, how you can actively listen, why you should do all of that, let's first begin with the basics. Okay, let's first understand what type you are. Okay, I'm gonna explain all these types of listeners, and by the end of this particular explanation, I need you all to open the chat box and tell me what type you are at home versus what type you are at work or whenever you used to work, right? Okay. See, the thing about listening is since the time a child is born, he or she is taught how to read, how to write, how to walk, how to speak. But nobody ever teaches a child how to listen. And that's a sad thing. I'm sure many of you have children, and mostly nobody would actually go and teach the child how to listen and what listening etiquette is, right? And in developing listening skills, you would also better be able to own your ability for deep focus, and it can be helpful in many other areas of life. Own as in HONE, not OWN. own, HONE means to enhance or improve, right? It will be able to own your ability to focus better. It will be able to, enhance your quality of responses to something, and all of this, right? Now, anyway, let's get into the types of listeners, right? Passive listening. Now, this is literally the most common type of listening that we do on an everyday basis. A passive listener is pretty much present in body only. Their mind is wandering. However, they hear the speaker's main points, but only little information gets through otherwise. Over and above the main points, they don't, care for listening about much else. But the thing about passive listeners is that they know to nod along, they know to say the right words, just so nobody else in the room is entirely aware about their actual lack of attention. Right? Passive listening prevents listeners as well as speakers from truly connecting with one another and makes for one sided communications at all times. Although this is the most common form of listening, we use it, um, in many, many situations. One is, for one, like, I'm sure many of you have experienced this when you were still working. A lot of times in corporates, you're pulled into meetings that could have literally been a one sentence email just for the sake of it. And it will be so annoying. It's just boring. It's useless, right? That's all you can think of. So you passively listen when, you're at dull meetings, you're in conversations with people we don't really like, or even, even when we are with our loved ones, a lot of times we end up passively listening when we're distracted, when we're multitasking, when we're stressed, when we're anxious, a lot of these situations. Selective listening. Now, selective listeners seem to filter out what they hear through their own worldview. It's like they have, how there are filters when you're clicking pictures on your phone or your Instagram? That's what selective listeners do. They have a filter of their own. So they only hear what they want to hear or what they expect to hear. They lean into their own beliefs, thoughts, and feelings to the point where they no longer hear viewpoints that are misaligned or different from their own, thought of what it has to be. This means even when a speaker conveys a message that contradicts with these biases, a selective listener manages to subconsciously twist and turn that message to fit their subconscious needs. Right? For example, imagine I gave you an assignment to do after effective communication class 1. Okay. And you've put in a lot of effort into that. You've spent enough time on it and you turn that assignment. I go through that assignment and I see that it needs a lot of improvement. I come and tell you, hey, great job on that assignment. I can see that you've put in a lot of effort. However, I think you missed these 3-4 points, and these 1-2 areas are, are those areas you need to improve on. If you are a selective listener, your brain shuts down the moment you hear great job. I can see that you've put in effort, because that's what you want recognized, right? So when a listener is so ingrained in their beliefs, they are not, they will be unable to hear any messages that counter them. Their social and emotional progress in life can also be stunted because of this. This is more of a subconscious thing. Or to be very fair and honest, all of us do passive, selective, attentive, empathetic, active listening a lot of times. But this is just an attempt to give you a breakdown of what is what, so you can be more mindful of how you listen, at the workplace specifically and in your life in general, right? Third, attentive listening. An attentive listener attentively holds on to the speaker's every single word. They are getting it all in. They can also remember it. However, just because an attentive listener is able to repeat back to you what you just said, it doesn't mean that they truly understood it. An attentive listener focuses primarily on the words being spoken and takes them at face value. For instance, when I was in college, when I was in school, I was a very attentive listener. Okay. Every time there is a lecture, every time there is a class and my professor says something, every single word will be in my notebook. I would be very meticulously taking notes. I was a very attentive listener. But none of it went into my head. My focus was to take that note down. That doesn't mean I didn't have to prepare for my exams, because nothing went into my head. I actually have to put effort into sitting and understand. So the problem with attentive listeners is that they may struggle to see the underlying meaning of an individual's words, or to pick up on the emotions that are, behind those words, and minute details in expression that differentiate a compliment from an insult. Right? When you're attentively listening and you forget to look at the emotion or the expression. See, imagine I come and tell you, you're coming in, I'm your boss, and you're coming and telling me, you're going to be late again, and you're giving me a reason for it. And I come and tell you, of course you're late. I know that. Just when I'm sure you have a great reason for it, right? I'm trying to be sarcastic, but if you're an attentive listener, you only understand words in face value, and you think, okay, my boss has gotten it. She's understood why I'm going to be late, and that I'm going to be late, and that's it. Right? The fourth type, empathetic listener. The thing about empathetic listeners are that they're very effective as listeners. Not only is an empathetic listener actively engaging with the words and the message, they're also actively paying attention to the emotion behind it, right? These listeners can put themselves in another person's shoes and understand their perspective. For instance, you're at work or you're at home, you see that somebody is distressed. This could be your coworker, this could be your partner, your husband, your child, whoever. You can see that from their face they're not okay. You go up to them, you ask them, is everything okay? Are you fine? And they say, yeah, I'm fine. And then they continue doing something. If you're an attentive listener, you hear that they're fine. If you're an empathetic listener, you're hearing that their voice is trembling, their face is not normal. It is like, their eyebrows are like that. It kind of gives you a message that they're actually not fine. They're just saying that they're fine. So you go ahead and probe them further, right? That is what an empathetic listener does. They place themselves in somebody else's shoes to understand that person's perspective. Finally, active listener. An active listener is an active participant in the conversation and in the message. They are effective because not only they thoroughly listen to what's being told, they engage with that message, they process that message, they understand the underlying meaning, they read between the lines, they pick up on the emotions, they process it, and they respond to it accordingly. That's what makes you an active listener. They ask questions, they offer input, they give their insights, they stay on the topic, they use body language to show that they're receptive to the speaker's words, whether they agree with them or not. It is communicated. Every single thing is communicated clearly, verbally, as well as non-verbal. If you want to really be a catch in the workplace, it is very, very important that you are an empathetic as well as an active listener. A combination of both of these will get you places. Okay, now that we've understood the 5 types of listeners, can you quickly open the chat box and tell me what type of listener you are at home versus what type of listener you are at work? Very, very quickly. Come on, guys, 30 seconds. That's all. Be honest, okay? Don't try to sound cool. Let me begin by telling you, most of the time at home, I'm a passive listener. Okay. I only listen to random things. I respond to it. I don't pay real attention to it unless and until my emotional support is needed somewhere. I'm not empathetic. I'm only passive. At work, I try to be active, but I end up being attentive. So I'm a combination of attentive and active at work. Okay, I have many answers coming in. Haha. Right. Okay. Anu says she's empathetic at home and selective at the office. Shruti is empathetic and attentive. Empathetic both at home and at work. That's great for you, Shruti. Empathetic and a little passive at home. Silly. Okay. Home, selective, office, active. Dhara. Dhara or Dara, I'm not sure. But okay. Honest answer. I love that. All kinds of listener depending on the situation. Correct, Sarah. I agree. Monica says she's empathetic and attentive. Shilpa is attentive, active, empathetic. Where? You should tell me where. At home, I'm passive and empathetic, and I'm not working. Okay, when you used to work, what type of a listener were you, Nandini? Home, active, office, selective. Okay, that's a good answer. I never thought of it that way. Awesome. Anjana says she's empathetic at home and attentive at work. Right. Depends on the situation. Home, empathetic, home, active, attentive. Active at home, empathetic outside, and sometimes depending on the speakers, attentive or passive. Sudeepini is like giving me the exact details. That's awesome. Okay. Trying to be active but attentive in the end. Sumaya, you and me both. Okay, let's both work towards being active. All right, thank you so much for this, guys. Let's move on to understand what stops us from being an active, effective, empathetic listener, right? First, intrusion, being a know-it-all, trying to, impress or influence. When do we do this? We do this when you're trying to make assumptions. Before somebody completes what they're saying, you assume that they're not going to cover something and then you raise questions. That's when you end up intruding someone. Remember the 3-second rule I told you about that you have to follow at work in the last session? That is your golden rule to getting into the social circle and like raising the social ranks at work. The thing about people at work is that, one, they love to speak. Two, they hate to listen. But strangely, they end up loving people who listen because nobody listens. It's very, very easy to just shut up and listen. And that will help you come off as someone, A, who is very approachable because, whether or not you're giving them valuable input, the fact that you listen is very valuable in itself, right? So you come off as someone who's very approachable, who'll understand, right? Which means you're also gaining their trust. It's very, very easy. See, whom do you think you go to when you have a problem? Someone who will actually listen to you or someone who will solve the problem? Think about it. On a personal level, would you go to someone who will hear you out or would you go to someone who can fix your problem? Tell me. Guys, am I audible? Oh, okay. Everyone's saying both. Okay. Okay. Personally, I don't know about all of you.
Someone who can fix my problem.
Really? I don't know. Especially for me, right? I don't know if it's my personality. I've noticed this with a lot of people in my family as well as at work. It is that most of the time, unless and until asked, you hate it when someone fixes your problem. I mean, I hate it when someone fixes my problem for me. Most of the time, I just want to vent. I just want to tell you. When I'm at work, right? Again, unless and until someone is ready to listen, they can't fix your problem, right? If you have to come off as someone who is approachable, the first level is to be someone who can listen, right? So that helps you come off as, a very trustworthy person. And a trustworthy person is the one people go to get their problems fixed rather than a fixer, because a fixer always comes off as a know-it-all, right? Someone who'd fix your problem, sure, but will give that the fix to that problem with a side of judgment, with a side of making you feel bad. So it's very, very important that you come off as a good listener and a trustworthy person at work. The easiest way to do that is stop intruding, stop assuming. A lot of times.
Aarti, I have a question here.
Okay. Yeah. please go
I'm
ahead.
Tasneem.
Who's speaking?
Tasneem.
Yes,
Tasneem. Yeah, see, at work, I am stuck with some code and I'm coding, I'm doing something, I'm stuck with it. I need some help. So there's another guy who is very good in coding and he can fix it. So at that point of time, I would really not be interested whether he is empathetic, this, that, and all that. I would just want that code part to be fixed. So
Absolutely.
I would go to him and tell him, like, like, this is the thing. So what is the, approach? What is the workaround for this?
Right.
So if he has some tantrums and all, like, I have to be okay with it for some time because I need that thing to be fixed. So I think I would go to someone who would fix the problem generally at
Absolutely.
work.
See, I think one thing
And-
I said got missed over here. What I said was when it comes to, raising in the social ranks at work, I'm not talking about getting work done. That's a part of your job. Obviously, you want to get your problems. I'm talking about the communication of the social aspects of work, not the technical work part,
Okay.
right? See, that
Okay,
obviously
okay.
you have to see either your job is to get work done in whatever
Yeah.
way possible. Obviously, then you're going to go to a fixer. I'm talking about uh, building trust, building, a social sense of belonging. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Right?
Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No problem at all.
Okay.
Right? So a lot of times, especially when we're a little interested, a little more enthusiastic than usual, we tend to assume what people are about to say and we tend to talk over them. We tend to complete their sentences. That only comes off as a sign of impatience and intrusion, right? You're trying to impress someone, you're trying to influence someone. That's never going to work when it comes to a speaker, right? Third thing that stops you from actively listening is zoning out, right? It's not even passive listening, it's beyond that. You're looking at someone and you're thinking about something else. You're very distracted, or you're simply just lost in your own thoughts, right? Fourth, establishing judgment and criticism. uh, is it important that you establish that you're judgmental or you're criticizing only through words? How do you establish? Is it possible to even do this non-verbally? Yes or no? Guys, are you able to hear me? Am I audible? Yes or no?
Yes,
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 Now
you're
I can
audible.
hear
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
But when I'm asking a question, everyone's just like zipping it up in an effective communication session. I'm very disappointed, guys. And I'm very sad also.
Yeah, I think
Come
we can
on.
do it verbally, non-verbally also, like raising eyebrows, opening
Yeah.
mouth wide
How so,
open.
Tasneem?
Like if they say they did something, then like, give them that expression of shock. Did you really do that? Kind of like raising your eyebrows or opening your
Right.
mouth wide.
Facial expressions,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Sighing, hissing, rolling eyes, looking at the time, whatever, right? So establishing any form of judgment, any form of criticism, verbally or non-verbally, and then being restless, like tapping your feet, playing with the pen. If you're having something, just keep doing this, or
And looking at your phone, messaging
looking
people.
at your phone, looking at distractions, right? Speaking of distractions can be internal as well as external. Most external distractions come from noises, the sound of the fan, the noise made by the air conditioning, some renovation work going on somewhere, uska sound, your texts, call, your notifications, your phone, biggest distraction, right? Now, the thing about all of these distractions is that they lead to resistance or annoyance in the speaker, leading them to feel either demotivated or simply putting them off, making them angry. It will mostly demotivate people who are speaking to you when they are hierarchically lower than you, in lesser in rank, or equal to you. And if they are still equal to you or above you hierarchically, and you're not, you're intruding, you're zoning out or making anything, it could really put them off. It could derail their thoughts, or it can even make them angry sometimes, right? uh, Moving on, inactive listening habits to avoid. Firstly, stop being a faker. Stop being a passive listener, which is having your mind elsewhere but trying to pretend like you're listening. Being an interrupter is literally the worst thing ever. You are very quick to cut in. You're very quick to interpret, make judgments without letting somebody speak. If at all, at any point in time, at the workplace, somebody is speaking to you, Please wait for them to be done. Count to 3 in your head and then respond, then ask your questions. If there is a situation where you have a burning question, burning comment that has to be made then and there, please put up your hand, let them recognize you, and then you can go ahead and say it. Because when somebody is speaking and you're constantly interrupting, it's very hard for them to articulate their thoughts and give it to you straight. I'm not talking about brainstorming sessions, discussions where you're actually giving input in real time. I'm talking about when someone is making a statement, someone's making a presentation, your boss is giving you a brief. Let them be done with it and then you can pose your questions. There is a very good possibility that whatever question you have, they're going to talk about in the course of their speech, right? So please wait for them to be done. If you have a very burning question, very burning comment to make, please put up your hand, wait for them to recognize you, and then go ahead and speak. It's very, more than the fact that it derails the conversation or anything, it's considered as a very, very annoying sign of disrespect in the workplace when you include someone, right? Moving on, stop trying to seek attention. Again, in the sense that I'm not talking about attention seeking behavior in the general sense, but in the workplace, when you're trying to, when somebody is speaking, if I'm telling you that don't be an attention seeker, I'm talking about stop trying to steal focus in terms of interrupting, in terms of constantly trying to make things about yourself, right? When a project is being briefed about and the entire team is being briefed, stop trying to talk only about yourself and what you need to do, right? There is a time and place for that. The focus is always not on you. It is, if you're working as a team, please be mindful of the fact that you're working as a team and it's not just about you, right? Moving on, advice giver, right? This is my favorite type of person. This is again the fixer, right? They can be good, they could give great advice, their input could be invaluable, but the time and the place is very, very important, right? Even if you have great advice, the way you put it forward and when you put it forward can be a game changer in terms of how it's received. Okay. Okay. Open the chat box now and give me one word that comes to your mind when you hear the term active listener. What makes you think? I mean, what word, what adjective can you use to describe an active listener? Quickly, guys. Or I'll pinpoint and ask otherwise. Okay, I'll give you 5 seconds to respond. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, Anu says they are attentive. Okay. It is true that an active listener is attentive. They give you responses on time. Perfect answer. What else? They are understanding. In what sense? Okay. One who respects the speaker. Okay. In what way? Tanmaya says a listener who makes you comfortable. Okay. Again, correct answer. But in what way? How do they make you comfortable? Responsive when you ask a question. Perfect. Opinions are shared. They maintain eye contact. Okay. The word I was looking for specifically is that they are receptive. What does the word receptive mean? A receptive person is open to ideas, it's open to whatever the person is saying. They are like a sponge. They're waiting to absorb first before they let it all out, right? An active listener is very, very receptive to whatever the speaker is saying. That doesn't mean they always have to agree with the speaker, but they're very receptive to ideas that the speaker is putting forward. Okay. Now, what is active listening? Active listening is when you not only hear someone and what they are saying, but you also attune to their thoughts as well as their feelings. It turns a conversation into an active, non-competitive, very importantly, a non-competitive, two-way interaction. That is what makes that is what differentiates hearing from active listening, right? Now, there are three major components to active listening, right? First is cognitive, the second is emotional, and third is behavioral. Cognitive, paying attention to all the information that are both implicit as well as explicit, um, um, all the information that you're trying to receive from this other person, you're comprehending it and integrating that information, right? The second thing is about the emotional component. I think that's self-explanatory. It is about how compassionate you are during the conversation and how you're managing your emotions during a conversation. Third is the behavioral, most important part, conveying the interest you have in the conversation and comprehending verbally and non-verbally whatever it is that you're listening. You're comprehending that verbally as well as non-verbally. Now let's get into all of this in detail, right? The cognitive component. Now the first step to listening actively is through paying attention and being completely present and aware to whatever is happening, doing away with all your distractions. For instance, when I'm talking, or rather, when I'm asking you a question and somebody is responding, when there is a background noise from somebody else's mic, I go and mute them. So that enables me to do away with the distractions and pay 100% attention to whatever it is that the person who's speaking is saying, right? Now, what you can do is, see, a lot of times you might be actively listening, very, very actively listening. But for the person who's speaking, or the person who is giving you that information that you're actively listening to, it might look like you're just zoning on. Sometimes it happens to me. Even when my concentration face is very weird, okay? I end up doing on the person's face. It looks like I'm zoning out on their face and I'm not listening to anything, right? The point is, active listening is not just about you actively listening, but also communicating that you're actively listening to the person you're listening to. Now, how do you do that? You can use the SOLAR method to communicate the fact that you're actively listening. So SOLAR is like an abbreviation for or rather, is an acronym. So S stands for squarely facing the speaker. Stand or sit in a way where you are facing the person straight on. If I'm talking to you like this, your camera is on, but you're looking like this the entire time, I'm going to think you're not listening to me, right? That's not how it is. You always face the person right on. Second, open posture. Now, open posture and leaning towards the person, both of these indicate to the speaker that you're actually interested in what they have to say. Now, there's a difference between sitting and listening like this and listening like this, right? So subconsciously, it gives the speaker, when you're sitting like this, that you're closed off to other opinions. It's an intrinsic subconscious process. It's not what they will actually, consciously make an effort to think about, but subconsciously it makes them feel like you're closed off. When your legs are not crossed, when your arms are a little open, it helps them understand that, it reflects openness to thought, being receptive. Leaning in, when you're leaning towards the person, it indicates that you're actually interested in what they have to say. It indicates curiosity, it indicates interest. E refers to eye contact, and that's self-explanatory. It means that when you're making eye contact with someone, they know that you're not zoning out. They know that you are listening, especially when they're moving also. Your eyes are following them. It shows that you're actually paying attention. Instead of looking at the fan or the curtain, you're actually looking at them. It makes a difference. R stands for relaxation. Now, ensure that you act naturally. If you try to practice all these gestures without sincerity, it will come across as having no interest in the sender or any messages that he or she is trying to give you. So ensure that the entire thing is organically coming to you. These are just filters to help you communicate that you're actually listening, right? Of course, many of these practices are based on, cultural innuendos in how we perceive stuff in as Indians and in the corporate world, right? Moving on, the emotional component. Now, a lot of times, whatever your speaker is saying, they might not make sense. It might trigger you to the point where you just want to go and slap them. It makes no sense. There could be a told you so moment. You would have told this person to not do that. They would go ahead and do that, and they'd bring the entire team to the rut. So there could be a lot of these situations at work when you go back to work. There could be a lot of conversations that may instill reactions of boredom, annoyance, irritation, etc. Now, all of these emotions might crop up while listening, but please try to not let it show behaviorally, and that's what we're going to be looking at. So when you talk about the behavioral component of active listening, there are two parts to it. One is non-verbal, another is verbal. Non-verbal component: engage actively by nodding, smiling, giving other appropriate facial reactions and bodily reactions by saying this, by saying yes. Oh, is that so? Right? You're leaning in. Your face is expressing what you're feeling as well. Right? So appropriate reactions will help the speaker feel heard and supported, and it will show to them that you're actively listening. Now, the second thing about the nonverbal behavioral component that is most often ignored is the use of silence, right? A lot of times people are not comfortable with silence. Whenever there's an awkward pause, a lot of us might feel the urge to speak and just put some sound in there. So not everyone is just randomly looking at their faces and staring, right? But get used to it. Let the speaker have the space to think, construct their thoughts, and articulate what they want to say, right? Resist the temptation to interrupt at any cost. Please follow the 3-second rule. Verbal component. First thing is verbal affirmations. Provide verbal affirmations like, oh yeah, that's right. Yes, absolutely. Whatever it is, right? Give these verbal affirmations and moderations to show your agreement, disagreement, whatever it is. Check at the end by paraphrasing what your speaker is saying to verify if you've understood it correctly. This is especially true when somebody is giving you a brief, when somebody is giving you a task, telling you what to do, when somebody is presenting an idea to you, be it a senior or a junior, whatever it is, right? So can someone quickly remind the class of what the difference between, summarizing and paraphrasing is? Sweetie, do you remember what summarizing is and how it's different from paraphrasing?
Summarizing means briefly express or elaborate the point.
Okay. How is it
In
different from paraphrasing?
in paraphrasing, we are elaborating the points in different ways.
Okay, I want a most okay. Yes, Jayita.
Summarizing when we are telling the whole story, and paraphrasing when we rephrase in our own words.
Okay, you're almost right. So both summarizing and paraphrasing involve you saying something in your own words, except a summary is by default a much shorter version of the original. A paraphrase does not involve any shortening in its process. So please don't ever paraphrase. People get bored. Summarize. Summarize what the speaker has told you and verify, confirm with them if you've understood it correctly. Hey, I just wanted to quickly check in. Can you please confirm if this is what you've said? Please correct me if I'm wrong, if I've understood this correctly, and tell me, is this what it is? Right? The third thing, pinpoint what you want to know more about and probe with open-ended questions with no judgment after reflecting on what you've heard. Now, what are open-ended questions? Open-ended questions are those that do not have an answer that is a simple yes or no. Those are close-ended questions. An open-ended question is a much longer version of it. Can someone give me an example of an open-ended question that you might use in a meeting or whatever? Yeah? Guys, why is everyone so silent today? Yeah? Y'all didn't have breakfast or what? Or is this the
Open-ended,
Bangalore weather?
open-ended mean when
Yes,
there
go
is
on.
open-ended means when there is a space for more conversation, like how is the weather, which is your favorite weather, like that. And close-ended question sound
Okay.
like more in a question form. It will end soon.
Correct. So if you're asking, isn't this what you meant? They can say, yes, this is what I meant, or no, this is not what I meant. So yes or no questions are close-ended. An open-ended question is something like, oh, also, before you ask any open-ended question, confirm that you are actually in agreement or disagreement or whatever it is. For example, this could be, oh, you're right. The onboarding procedure could use some updating. However, what are the changes you want to bring in the next 6 months? Can you elaborate on that part? You have to pick on what this person is saying, give them a verbal affirmation that you've actually heard them, you've understood them, and you're asking for more information. Now, how does this work well for you? It makes you come off as an active, curious listener. Because if you're not curious, if you're not interested, you're just going to nod and say, yeah, yeah, yes, you're making 100% sense, and you're going to move on. If you're asking questions, if you're probing them to give more answers, you're pushing them to explore and give elaborate answers, then you're nudging thoughts, you're nudging more explanation. So that makes you come off as a very curious, interested person. Okay. Now, moving on. What are the different ways to show that you're an active listener in virtual meetings when your camera is on? See, the thing is, most times when you're on online meetings, your camera is off. Most people end up muting other people because there's a lot of disturbance behind, right? So you're on mute, your camera is off. How do you show someone that you're actively listening? This is a real world problem that you might face. Yes, Tinu.
You can use the chat option, you can use the reactions and all those things.
Absolutely, spot on. First thing, use the reactions as much as possible. Can everyone give me a thumbs up reaction right now? Don't do this on camera. I'm asking you to give me a reaction from the option here on Zoom, not on the chat box. You guys, not on the chat box. Here. Okay, I can see Simi. I can see Jaita. I can see Vidya, Snelata, Aparna, Sona, Chaitanya, Dhara, Dhara. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Okay. Okay, see, there are a lot of reaction options in most of the meeting interfaces. There's options on Teams, there's options on Zoom. I think there are a couple of options on Google Meet also. There's an option to even raise your hand when you have a question. You could use the reactions, you could use the chat box. However, please go easy on the chat box. That could be intrusive too. You can't keep typing out paragraphs and interrupting someone. That is also distracting to the speaker. So please go easy on the chat box. When you can react, you can respond to them. That's a great way to do it. Another thing is, what do most of us do in online meetings? We claim that our bandwidth is low, so we're going to turn the camera off. And then we are comfortably on mute as well. And then I end up scrolling Instagram, YouTube Shorts, and whatnot, right? Most of us end up doing that. The only way to act, and then when I've been pointed and asked some question, we were like, I think I dropped off for a second. I couldn't hear you. Could you repeat that? Please don't do that. As much as it's tempting, please do not do that. At least passively listen to what is going on. I know you're going to be scrolling. I know you're going to be doing something. What I do is I end up playing a simulation game, right? I end up doing a mindless game. So I'm engaged in doing something, but I can at least passively listen. Instead of scrolling, because there's a lot of new information when you're scrolling and you're trying to understand that, and there's new information coming into your ears from the meeting as well. So don't try to scroll. Find something else, be it doodling, be it something else that does not require your 100% attention, so you can at least passively listen. The easiest way to tell someone that you're actively listening when your camera is off and you're on mute is when they call you out, right? When they ask you for something, and they ask you to say something, be responsive immediately as soon as you can, right? Most of us take the time to go on, unmute ourselves and do something else because we were doing something else when that was going on. Try not to do that. Figure out your middle ground. That will really help. I end up playing, stupid games like 2048 that I can play mindlessly. I don't have to pay attention to it. So I can at least passively listen. I'll at least have a vague idea of what they're speaking about, right? Let's just face it, not all of us can actively listen at all times, but the smart thing to do is knowing how to manage it, right? So that's what I'm trying to tell you. Now, let's move on to understanding jargons. Okay, before we go into this session, open the chat box and tell me one jargon in the workplace that that threw you off initially or you didn't know about until you did, right? For me, it was what was it? EOD was something I didn't know when I started working. Okay, USP, unique selling proposition. Okay, what else? What you use on an everyday conversation. Out of office. Yes, even I was like, why is this person saying ooh? I used to read it as ooh, and I didn't know what it was. It was actually out of office. Okay. FYI, for your information. ASAP, as soon as possible. POV, point of view. PTO, what is PTO? Please turn over. I don't know.
Take time off.
Okay, BRB, be right back. ASAP, as soon as possible. FYR, for your reference. By the way, TIA. Sorry, what is TIA?
Thanks in advance.
Thanks in advance. Arre baapre. Okay. All right. So let's go over some corporate, jargons first, and then we can get into the technical ones. Okay. EOD was something I didn't know when I started working, and it was this, more than the fact that what it means, I'm sure by now all of you know what EOD means, right? EOD stands for end of day and refers to the conclusion of a workday. Now, the tricky part about EOD is that especially when you're working with clients, right? Their EOD is 6 p.m. and my EOD at work is 12 a.m. So that could be confusing. So ensure that you confirm the timings wherever required. But what the word EOD literally means is someone's telling you to drop everything you're doing and take care of that thing first. They're not going to be ready to hear any ifs and buts. Hard stop. Can someone tell me what hard stop means? Hard stop? Okay. Hard stop is basically, concluding a meeting or a call or whatever at an agreed upon time because someone has somewhere else to be right after. I have a hard stop at 3 p.m. I've got another meeting lined up. I have a hard stop at 5 p.m. Because I have to go out and meet the client. What I really say when I say I have a hard stop at this time, what I usually mean is that I know this meeting is pointless. I'm not ready to waste any more time than the stipulated 20 minutes. That's what people usually mean. So it's a sign for you to remember that cut out the bullshit, get to the point straight. Okay. Circle back. Anybody? Circle back? Do you know what circle back means?
Revisit.
Correct. If you have some questions, concerns, or remarks about something that is said earlier and you'd like to address them again, I'd like to circle back to what you said before about, making changes to the onboarding process. Now, the thing is, this is something, this could be used in two different ways, okay? One is when somebody is changing the subject, you tell them, hey, nice try trying to change the subject, but let's get back to this point. I need to drill you about this. Second is when you want to tell them you want to talk about this later. For instance, if the discussion keeps going on and it's going to a dead end, you're going in circles, you're coming back to the same thing over and over again without any conclusive results, you tell people that let's circle back to this towards the end of the call, or let's circle back to this later. Okay. Let's align. What does aligning mean? Aligning basically is where you ensure that everyone is on the same page and there are no misunderstandings or differing interpretations on what you're about to say. Right? Before we proceed with the client meeting, let's align on key talking points and objectives. That's how you use the word align. Now, park it. Park it is also very similar to circle back, right? To set aside a discussion or postpone something for a later time. For instance, you say, we have limited time in this meeting, so let's park this issue for now and continue our next discussion point. Okay? What it really means is that, hey, listen, I don't want to talk about this now, or possibly ever. Okay? This doesn't require my time. Okay? Low-hanging fruit. Does someone know what low-hanging fruit means?
Easily available.
Less important.
A combination of both. Both of what you guys said. Basically, it is drawing focus to the easily achievable goals or tasks first before you dive into complicated items. Okay? For instance, your manager could say, let's pick the low-hanging fruit first for some quick wins. Okay? Now, the thing about the contextual meaning of low-hanging fruit is that it can be really tricky. Please pay attention to this. At the workplace, because it can actually mean two things. One is that someone's asking you to work smarter and not harder. Second is it could be a sign where they're telling you, hey, you're only doing the bare minimum. You need to put in more effort. Okay. Buy-in. Can someone tell me what buy-in means?
Agreeing to an idea.
A little, okay. See, you're almost there, right? Before you continue further with something, you ensure that everyone not just agrees but approves or signs off on a plan. It is very similar to aligning, but aligning is on a level of being on the same page and agreeing. But buy-in is a little more serious on a much larger level, from an approval point of view. We need to get everybody's buy-in before we proceed with this project. And we should align on the action points right now. So it's the word align is used for a smaller scale agreement. Buy-in is used for a larger scale approval. Yeah, that is the difference. Bandwidth. What does bandwidth mean?
Time.
Exactly. If someone asks you if you have the bandwidth to perform a task at work, what they're asking is if you have the time to do so. See, it's very easy to say, do you have the time to do it? It's just a fancier version. It just sounds more corporate and, professional. If you say, hey, do you have the bandwidth to take up some of this? Versus saying, hey, do you have the time to finish this thing? Right? So it's just a fancier version to sound more professional and corporate. Right? Okay. Now we've spoken about workplace jargons that are, corporate lingo. Now, can you all open the chat box? Tell me your line of work and something that's specific to your line of work on a technical basis. For instance, I work in the advertising sector, right? So the script that we write for video ads or any ad for that matter is called as copy. Copy is the jargon that is used. So like that, open the chat box or just unmute and tell me what technical jargons that you can think of. For example, in the last class, someone, same time yesterday, somebody said, somebody spoke about bugs and cookies. Okay, Shipali is saying in data science, there's something called as load balancing. Shipali, what is load balancing? Can you unmute and confirm?
So actually load balancing is, when we have multiple tasks and we distribute our tasks to the other colleagues so that we share the load.
Delegation. Okay, come on. This is a great start. I want more technical stuff that's specific to. So for instance, in data science, what is a specific technical jargon at work that you use on an everyday basis? So think about that and get back to me. Shruti, what is CNTK?
It's a term we use in natural language processing.
Okay. What
for taking those insights of signals, the voice samples. So we say that CNTK.
Okay, okay. What else? Come on, guys. Let me point out and ask if you don't give me more. Okay, PR, peer review, process review. Okay, okay. Again, see, you guys, you're leaning towards the corporate workplace lingo. I want you to give me technical jargons that you use at work on an everyday basis. Someone mentioned KRAs, someone mentioned SLAs, service level agreements, scope of work. Someone mentioned what did they mention? Another thing I was getting to, tickets, and other stuff. SOP is also something somebody, okay. Oh yeah, we have an SOP here. Vidya. So, systematic operating procedures, right? Oh, sweetie, what is TOC?
Table of content.
Table of content. Okay. And what is your line of work? How is it contextualized?
Content writing. I'm working in the field of content writing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Sonam, you have given us a lot of technical jargons. Can you explain yourself?
So I gave HLD, that is high level design. So these are the design documents that are created by the designer, the tech architects and tech leadership
Correct.
to create our projects. And then the low level designs are which are like more granular forms of your HLD documents. Then you have I gave POCs. So POCs are your proofs of concept. You can create maybe a small project or maybe some sort of app and all and display that. So I think these are the few things that I gave. There are other things PRs like you normally raise when you are in a CI/CD system, continuous integration, continuous delivery systems. You raise sort of PRs on Git. Those are called the peer reviews of process. So let's just get us do a PR, something like that. Get your PR reviewed. So stuff.
PR, yeah,
Then there are
awesome.
that
Yeah, see, this is
particularly
the
in
kind of tech jargon I was looking for. Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Sonam. Anu mentioned QCD. What is it? I only know QC, which is quality checking or QA, quality analysis. Okay, Kirtana, I think, is into marketing. She's mentioned CPM, AC, and CLV. Cost per mill, customer acquisition cost, and customer lifetime value, right?
Yeah, correct.
Right. Can you explain it to us?
So these are more, I think, in terms of digital marketing. So cost per 1,000 impression is just how many times your ad or post is viewed by people.
For 1,000 views of a certain ad, how much it costs.
How much it
And
costs.
customer acquisition cost is how much money you've spent in the number of ads or calls or whatever it is to acquire a certain customer who actually pays and buys a product. Customer lifetime value is the calculation of how much a customer is likely to spend on the brand or the product for the rest of their lives. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, Simi, what is SR?
It's a service request.
Yes, that's right.
Service request. Okay. Sumaya, EDA. I've heard of ETA. What is EDA? Okay, Anu has mentioned a couple of things. Hi, Anu. What is QCD?
I'm sorry. Exploratory data analysis. While handling the data, we need to do some works like we need to clear the missing values and we need to get the information in the data. There we need to put some code. For that, we are saying it is EDA, exploratory data analysis. It includes the task, some of the code.
Got it. Okay. Awesome. You guys have so many technical jargons to share, and that's great. Again, in case you want to get a very quick understanding of tech or IT related jargons, here is a source you can turn to for latest jargons to just refresh your memory before you go into the workplace. Okay, impactful presentations. Now, can someone tell me what you noticed about this particular deck that you've been seeing on the screen so far that appealed to you? Yeah, Shipali, yes.
So it had very less information, which was all in text forms, and very less
Okay.
visuals were very
So
less.
how did it work for you as a listener?
So yeah,
The less
like,
text part.
yeah, so we can just get a mind. We can just see the words and get the context of what the person is trying to explain to us. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Anybody else? Thank you for that. Anybody else? One more answer and we'll move into learning how to make impactful presentations.
Connect,
Okay.
direct connect. Direct connection, ma'am. Whenever you see, we could be, we can get, on pace, we can be with you when you have the impactful presentations.
Okay, okay. You guys, okay, Simi has unmuted. Simi, I have a
Yeah,
question
no,
for
I
you.
was just, I want to tell you, you have to be like actively listening because there was only those words. Only if you listen to you, then we will
Right.
know what exactly you are
That's
talking
the
about.
tricky mind game. Anyway, Simi, have you had a chance to present to somebody before at work? Were you put in a spot where you
Not
had
really.
to
I have
present?
only we created this document, but didn't get a chance to present.
Present. Okay. When you were creating the document also, what was the biggest challenge for you?
It should not be like too much,
No, I'm not asking what makes for an impactful presentation. Understand my question. What was your biggest challenge? What did you find? What did you find to be difficult?
Yeah, how to make it so compact, those things. It will be like a paragraph, how to make it very short and, understandable.
Got it. Got it. Anybody else with a different problem? Anybody else with a different challenge they faced in the past while trying to make presentations, either while making the deck or while presenting? What was one challenge that you faced?
Getting audience attention from the very beginning to the end.
Okay, okay. Let's look at fixing both of those key things. I hope I cover that part. Okay. Presenting to the leadership or anybody with high stakes. Now, the thing is with senior executives, they are one of the toughest crowds you will face as a presenter. They are incredibly impatient because their schedules are jam-packed, or at least they pretend to be busy, whatever it is. And they have to make lots of high-stake decisions, often with very little time to weigh in options. So they won't sit still for a long presentation with a big reveal in the end. That will not work for them. You have to take the top-down approach with them at all times. Give the biggest, whatever is your beefiest, meatiest part, that has to be first. That has to be given to them first. And then you should boil down to specifics. If you're leading up to your big reveal, it will not work for them. It can be frustrating for you because they will look impatient. They will keep looking at the watch. They will keep interrupting you. They will do all of these nonsensical behaviors simply because they can, right? Okay. You probably have a lot to say to them, and it might be your only chance to say it, but you have to present it effectively. How do you do this, right? Hold on for just a second. Right. How do you do this? First step to this is research. Okay. Firstly, research your content. Okay, content and the brief. Get your facts right. Bridging the gap of knowledge will give you an instant boost of confidence and will give you clarity on what needs to be said. Okay. Get in touch when somebody is giving you a brief to make a presentation. Somebody will obviously do it, right? You know what to do. Ask the right questions. Understand what's going to be the end result. What are they expecting out of this particular presentation? Please ensure that is very, very clear to you. If not, please go and ask this person. It's okay. It's better to sound stupid now and ask these questions rather than sound stupid after the presentation is over. So please weigh your options and understand where you need to pick your battles. See, it's important to win a war rather than a battle. Okay, so choose what you're doing very correctly. Second thing that most people miss doing is researching the audience. As an advertiser, I know for a fact that understanding your target audience is very, very important, because it's very easy to please someone you know instead of trying to play a guessing game on what they might like or what they're expecting. So when you're getting a brief, understand the stakeholders who are going to be present at this meeting, understand who they are, and understand what is expected out of you and what the final output is expected, what final output is expected out of this particular presentation. Okay. Now, take this information, go to the stage of articulation. Articulation is where you make that slide deck, where you make that presentation, right? Please remember that an audience cannot listen to your presentation and read a detailed slide that is text heavy at the same time. They are not superhumans. They're not going to be able to do either properly, because both of these are going to be fighting for attention. Will they read the slide or will they even listen to it? It should be very, very easy. They can't do both without missing key parts of your message anyway. So ensure that your slides pass the glance test. The glance test is basically where people should be able to comprehend each one of your slides within 3 seconds of looking at them. You go look at any slide I've given you, you'll be able to understand what I'm trying to talk about within 3 seconds. For example, this is a text heavy slide. This has a lot of text in it. Yes, of course it does. But the title, the way it is listed, it gives you a very clear idea of what the slide is about and what I'm talking about very, very quickly in 3 seconds. That is the glance test. Ensure that you don't have too many elements. Sometimes you're so focused on making the presentation so beautiful and aesthetic that there are so many elements, so many design elements, so much text that they're fighting for attention. That should not be the case. Okay. Keep your slides very, very clean. Okay. And have a logical flow to what you're talking about, in the entire presentation as well, and in each slide as well. Okay, on a slide level and a presentation level, all information should be presented with a logical flow to it. It's easier for people to understand, even when they're listening passively. If there's a logical flow to it, their brain will automatically be able to grasp the information you're giving. Okay. Begin by discussing the agenda for the presentation first, and then get into each section in detail. Always follow an inverted cone, top-down approach. Okay, your agenda slide should give a very, very clear understanding. If you remember, this was my agenda slide for today. I began this session by telling you we are going to be discussing 3 key things. You're going to be learning 3 key things. One is how to actively listen. Second is jargons at the workplace. And third, how to make impactful presentations. Right? This gave you a very clear idea of what is in store for you, especially when you're presenting to an impatient audience, right? It has happened to me a lot of times that my client, after I put in a lot of effort into it, they would just want to skip. But if you do not have an agenda slide that's very clearly telling them what is in store for them, they'll be waiting. They're impatiently, they're not even passively listening. They're very selectively listening, which is not going to do you any good. When you have an agenda slide, when you take them through the summary of the entire presentation first, before you begin, it is very easy for them to say that, let's skip to this part. That way, you're in your brain, you're also not derailed, right? When it's easy for you to switch gears also. If you have an agenda and they ask you to skip, it's much easier, which is very, very likely to happen in a corporate setup where people pretend to not have that. Okay. Okay. And one more thing I need you to remember is that the summary that you give, especially while discussing the agenda, should be your entire presentation in short that can entice and convince your audience to listen. Okay. Don't give away all of the details, but you have to give the overarching details. Okay. For instance, this time, for me, this was a very simple 3-step process. So it was very easy. I can probably give you a different example. Are you still able to see my screen? Yes. Let me show you another thing. Okay. Okay, this was a presentation we made for a brand called Vino Baby, and it was for their digital launch. Okay, so this was the agenda. Okay, I told them we're going to be talking about, we're going to be first going over the introduction, the positioning, the visual language, And then we're going to be getting into the communication strategy and the influencer strategy. The first part about the introduction, right? This is what our tasks are. We first have to articulate, we have to discover what our personality is. We then have to establish that to the world and grow. And we have to visually convince the world this is our brand. These are the tasks set right. But I'm still not telling them what exactly it is. I'm giving them a very clear understanding. When I was presenting this to the client, they said, let's straight away get to the grow part because they know how they are going to articulate their brand. But then I told them, I understand where you're coming from, but the articulate part is not just about discovering what we are, but us trying to tell you what our brand's personality is going to be. So we are in alignment, right? So I was able to have that discussion only because it's clearly mentioned like this. Okay. Moving on to the articulation part, right? Formatting your slides. Ensure that the fonts, the placement of the text, the color is all uniform throughout the presentation. Your first slide can't be blue and the third slide can't be red and the next slide can't be black. Of course, if there's a logical flow to it, for some reason, for example, in this one, there's a combination of blue and, off-white, because that is the color of the brand. Those are the colors of the brand, which is what we've used. But still, there is a logical flow to it. The title slides are blue in color. Everywhere, the title slides are blue in color. The rest of the slides are off-white in color, right? So it can't change. Even in this particular presentation, if you go from this slide to this slide, one second, I'll show you. Right. Cognitive component, behavioral component. These are back-to-back slides. But if you see the alignment of this text, the placement where the word cognitive and the word behavioral is has not changed. So it's visually easy for me to change from this slide to this slide. It is placed in the exact same place. All of these might sound like very trivial details to you, but for someone who's listening to you, who's looking at the presentation, I have seen so many people who've changed, like if this is still here, right, it still is a visual inconsistency that will distract your audience. You might look at it as a very small thing, but all of this shows how much effort you put in, how professional you are. Every single thing matters. Nobody pays attention to you unless and until you make a mistake. And the moment you make a mistake, right? The moment you make a mistake, everybody is looking at every single thing. You're put under the microscope. So don't leave those loose ends. Okay. Always keep your alignment, your text, your font. Keep consistency is key. You can't use one font size somewhere and another font size elsewhere. Of course, you need to alternate between fonts, sizes, etc. But there should be a logical flow to it. If it's a title, it's a bigger font. It's a bigger font size and probably even a different font. If the body has a different font in a different formatting, okay. Because there is some logical flow to it. Your slide 1 and slide 2, which are two similar slides, can't be in different font sizes, different fonts, different formatting, right? Uniformity is key. Now, all of these visual elements, right? It's very easy for you to do this if you, with the use of certain tools. You can use Canva, you can use Slides to Go. You can use Prezi. While Canva and Prezi will still require you to have more skills, you can you can go on to this website called Slides to Go that gives you ready-made templates that you can use on a PPT or on Google Slides. Just change up the words. All of these that you're seeing, this particular presentation, this, all of these are from ready-made templates that I just changed up a little bit here and there, right? So that will stop you from having to ensure that this is aligned in the straight line or not. They will already be readily available to you. So you just have to make those little changes, right? So use tools that will help you. Another thing, while making the presentation, this is my personal preference, okay? This is how you have seen my presentation so far. It has very less content on the slide because I personally believe nobody should ever read off of a presentation, right? An AI voice tool can do that. You are a human. You have to bring in a human element. You have to keep it organic, right? If you're just going to read off of a slide, a text heavy one, it makes no sense. It doesn't make sense. Even in this particular presentation, wherever you see, text heavy slides like this, right? I did not read this out. I told my client, these are just some sample profiles which you can take the time to read. I am not an AI voice generation tool, right? Unless and until I have value to add, I'm not going to speak. And if your slide is going to say every single thing, there's no use for you. Ensure that you keep only the overarching ideas on your slide. Whatever extra you want to talk about, keep it in your notes. There is no shame in having notes, okay? So, for example, so this is the third time I'm taking this particular session. There are other sessions like interview readiness that I've taken over 70, 80 times, and I still cannot do it without speaker notes. That doesn't mean that I don't know what I'm talking about. It is just a way, it's a tool that enables me to give all of the information without missing anything confidently. Then there's no shame in having those notes. Whether it's in the form of speaker notes, whether it's in the form of flashcard, whether it is in the form of a Word document, whatever works for you, have those notes ready and ensure that you have them offline. Because a lot of times it so happens that I prepare and I'm usually flustered without notes. It's not that I don't know what to speak, but when I have it in front of me, it's much easier for me to speak naturally, right? And the moment I don't have my speaker notes, I'm very, very, very flustered. I don't know what I'm talking about. I could tank the entire presentation. So a lot, you can't rely on internet and having it at all times. So if it means that you have to keep it on your phone, download it offline, or if you have to write down, whatever works for you, have your notes offline and ready at any point in time. Okay. Third, prepare. Okay. Trust me, if you think you make the presentation beautifully, you're going to go there and wing it because you've spent 7 hours on that presentation and you know what exactly each slide is saying, and you're going to go there and present and you can wing it. Of course, there are people who can do it, but it never happens for me. I have to prepare. Before presenting, please always do a dry run, either by yourself or with somebody in your team or your boss or whoever it is. Try to get their input on understanding whether you are communicating what you're intending to communicate. Does your summary slide boil down everything into a skimmable key insight excerpt? Are you missing anything that your audience is likely to expect? Most importantly, this is one thing people miss. Please time yourself. Okay, a lot of times it so happens that you prepare for 10 minutes and you end up speaking about it for 30 minutes. When you're preparing, when you're doing a dry run, that will really help. Presentation. Regardless of how much research you do, regardless of how beautifully you make your presentation, regardless of how many times you rehearse it, it is all going to boil down to how you present it on the day of your presentation. Dress up, dress for the occasion. Not just because you have to look beautiful or anything. That's not what I'm talking about. There's a difference between showing up like this and showing up with a proper hair and like in a put together manner. It is important that you look put together. I'm not talking about beauty standards, having to wear makeup or anything. I'm just talking about looking professional, showing up in a way where you're expected to in the place. For me, dressing up gives me confidence. If I know that I've put in enough effort into dressing up, I am someone who's very conscious about how I look. I know that if I'm dressing up, I have one thing to worry about less, because I know I'm not looking bad. That gives me some confidence. Okay, and also find a calming ritual. Right, reach before time. For me, my calming ritual is boiling water and seeing it boil, because I always have hot water during my sessions. It helps me with my voice and throwing my voice and opening up. Looking at that water boil weirdly is my calming ritual, because I get very anxious. I get very, very scared before the presentation. And find what works for you. A lot of times, if you're anxious, that could really, really, really help. Okay, have your notes offline and ready to go at all times. Most important thing, people will always remember the first and the last things that you say. in your presentation. And this is due to the primacy and recency effect. You can read up more about it if you want. The thing about inexperienced speakers is that they often remember to have strong introductions. They make, even while preparing, right? They focus on how they're going to start. But towards the end of the presentation, they fizzle out. Either they physically burn out, or they mentally burn out, or their voice goes away because they put in so much effort in the beginning, and they don't moderate that effort and stagger it throughout, right? Especially if you have too much content and you're not timing yourself properly, you might have to rush through the end, which doesn't work at all. It will look like a haphazard job. So always ensure, you know how stand-up comedians work? They, if you notice, whenever you look at a stand-up, you go to a stand-up or you're watching it online also, their best joke is in the end. They start with their second best joke, they end with their best joke. Because by the end, when you're having that uncontrollable laughter, you'll have that feeling that, oh my God, this was such a funny show. But if it's going to end with a bad joke, then you're going to be like, oh my God, I wasted my time on this, right? So that works well for your presentations as well. So always have a very conclusive, strong end. And how do you have that? One is you can always summarize what you just said very, very quickly in a very, very quick manner. Second is you give clear call to action to everyone present. You give clear action points to everybody present. What are the next steps? You've presented an idea, you've presented the problem. How are you going to go through the solutions, or do you already have the solutions? What does each person have to do, right? End with clear action points and they will be more than happy with your presentation. And one more question that I would missed answering towards the end is that somebody asked me, I'm not able to consolidate all my points and put together, right? Again, you need to work smarter, not harder. It's not that hard. Put whatever you want to write in a slide, go on to ChatGPT, tell ChatGPT that you're making a presentation, this is the content, just divide it into 12 slides and give me very short forms of text for each slide. It will help you with it. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, but at least it'll give you something to work with. A lot of times I don't end up taking what ChatGPT gives me, but it gives me thought starters that helps me because the thought starters are what take time. They take a lot of insane amount of time to come up with what you want, but it's very easy to tell what you don't want. So when ChatGPT gives you what you don't want, you go to a much faster, it's a much faster route to get to what you want, right? So if you need help summarizing, use AI tools that can help you do that, right? And I hope I ended the session on a strong note with this, because thank you so much for joining in. That will be my time for today. I will meet you guys again next week for interview readiness. That said, I'm also dropping some of my links for those of you all who are interested. Sorry. And if you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to take 2 questions now and the rest of the questions later. So if you have any questions, comments on how you liked the session, if it was useful, now would be the time to tell me. Now at least speak, yeah.
Thanks, Aarti, for the wonderful session. As last session, it was very interesting. One small question. I don't know whether it is correct or I don't know. Okay, we discussed about a lot of
first thing about I want to tell you is, please, whenever you're asking a question, don't say that. You're devaluing yourself. I will probably pay lesser attention to you if you're not confident. Don't do that.
Okay,
anyway, go on.
Fine. Yeah, we learned about the all type of listening, right? Ideally, what is the best type of listening? A person, you tell, okay, a person is an active listener. What is ideal thing a person should have?
At the workplace,
maybe like you can
see specifically at the workplace, and I personally prefer an empathetic active listener. That is the combination I would go for. But realistically speaking, it's very hard to be an empathetic active listener at all times. At the end of the day, all of us are human. We're going to do all forms of listening. At least when the stakes are high, When you're with senior management people, when you're at an interview, when you're at a salary negotiation, you have to be active and empathetic, right? So that's the type I would go for.
Yeah, okay. But personally, it depends, right? Sometimes you will be passive active.
Yeah. I told you, right? At home, I'm mostly a passive listener. I'm only empathetic when my emotional support is needed, because it's impossible to be empathetic and attentive and active at all times. It takes effort. Where needed, I will do that. But realistically, it's not possible for me to actively listen and be empathetic at all times. I'm also human. When I'm hungry, I'll be cranky. I can't actively listen when I'm hungry and cranky, no? So realistically speaking, that's what it is. Yeah. Right. Thank you so much for the question. Does anyone else have any other question? Did you all enjoy the session? Did you all learn something new?
Yes, can you
Yes,
show the
ma'am.
Venn diagram, the key of effective communication you had shown, right? That was really good.
Absolutely, sure. 1 second. Sorry. This is the one.
Yeah. So here, like cognitive in the sense, like how can you tell it in detail?
So cognitive component refers to you paying attention to all the information that is both explicit as well as implicit. So when you're receiving information from another person, how you receive it and how you comprehend it and integrate that information is the cognitive part.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
Most welcome. Thank you so much for joining in, everyone. Have a great, lovely Tuesday ahead. I'll see you again very, very soon. Until then, bye-bye. I hope this session was useful to you.
Thank you, Aarti.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for joining in. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
you,
you.
ladies.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining on time. Thank you so much. And your next session is on tomorrow only. Tomorrow we are having speed mentoring session. Okay, at 11 a.m.
Okay.
Please be available. I have already sent you the calendar invite also.
Ma'am, Beenu ma'am is coming.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Good expectation. Baby. Yes, she has the speaker for tomorrow. Okay. Please be ready with your questions also. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.